is health as well. So I am excited to have assembled a powerhouse panel of guests tonight to help us talk about back to school strategies to prepare for a successful year. Now, those of you who are in Indiana, where I'm based at, I know that some of us are already back to school. I think a majority are back to school. So I apologize for that. But, I think other people watching from across the country, there's different times going back. So hopefully you'll still get a lot of useful tips as we begin to settle into the school year and advocate for our kids. Now, tonight, as you're coming on live, you will have the opportunity to ask questions and comments as we chat. And as a very special thing, we just cooked this up. When you do, please use hashtag, and I'm going to flash it up here on the screen because it is kind of long. But if you could use, and I'm going to take off that scroll because it's too long. So I'm going to do that. Okay. Use the hashtag Let's Talk Kids Health Back to School. And every time you put a comment with that hashtag anywhere in that on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching us from tonight to interact with us, you will be entered into a grand prize drawing that's going to happen live at the end of this broadcast. And more about what the fun things are there. But one of the things that I want to show you, because who doesn't love a brain plushie? This is from my friend and Nerd Bugs. So this is one of the prizes, your own, all wrapped up in saran wrap. So this is my own, but I got another one for somebody else. And then a bunch more stuff. So I'm going to tell you all about that in a little bit. But I wanted to quickly introduce our panelists because I've got so many great people on. And we're hoping one other person joins us. But we're going to go ahead and quickly introduce them so that we can jump into this great conversation tonight. So first, I have Dr. Funke Afolabi-Brown. Many of you might have recognized her because she comes on to my weekly show and into my Teach Me ADHD community many, many times. But she's a triple board certified sleep medicine physician who's passionate about helping people discover the gift of sleep as a superpower. She's a speaker, educator, writer, and founder of Restful Sleep MD, where she helps busy professional women and their children prioritize sleep to not only achieve their optimal health, but thrive. Next up, I have friend Marissa Argus. She's an instructional coach and former classroom teacher with over 10 years of experience in public and private school settings. She has a broad range of qualifications, including gifted education, English language learners, special education, and teaching reading. And she's also a co-host of Wiggle with Words podcast, which I couldn't help but throw in there because it's so cute. Next, I also have Lee Boudou, founder of Wrist Flips routine bracelets. She is the mother of 2 and has struggled with a lifetime of executive functioning difficulties from a seizure disorder and undiagnosed ADHD. Now, these life experiences inspired her to found her company, Wrist Flips, and more from her in a little bit because she's got some good giveaways tonight. So keep watching. Then I have my friend, Heather Gurton, early childhood and elementary school director. She's been in the field for 23 years now, and she's at Orchard School in Indianapolis, Indiana, where she continues to reap the benefits of exploring what it means to teach the whole child. So thank you for coming. Next, we have Beth Leisenfeld. Now, she is an occupational therapist and founder of the IEP Lab. She is totally jazzed about helping parents get an effective IEP for their child by learning insider information. She is on a mission to teach parents advocacy tools so they don't have to fight school all the time just to get their child learning and thriving. I also have a friend, Dr. Karen Palmer. She's a general pediatrician in Portland, Oregon. She views part of her role as supporting children and parents in any way she can and loves to help prep them for back to school. So not only do general pediatricians do immunizations and physical exams, but she wants to support them holistically. She loves dialoguing with other professionals on the team. And then last but never least, Dr. Michelle Thorne, who I hope will be joining. Oh, here she is, Dr. Thorne.
Hi, so sorry for the delay.
No, that's okay. Thank you for joining. You came on just at the right time. I'm just introducing you. She is She is friend and clinical psychologist who loves working with kids, helping them learn ways to manage big emotions in stressful situations. She enjoys working with kids and families with medical conditions that impact their daily lives. She is the owner of Infinity Wellness Associates in Carmel, Indiana. So, oh my gosh, I am so happy to have all of you here tonight. Now the full panel is here. Remember, drop a comment. And every time you drop a comment with that hashtag, it's got to have that hashtag, you're going to have an entry into the drawing at the end of this broadcast. Okay. Oh, wow. We got our first one. Hello, Meg. Thank you for coming and watching and commenting. You've got a raffle entry in. Thank you so much. You're always so good. Okay. So I'm going to just throw out my first question because, as you know, I said, Indiana, we're already back to school. But I think because I've assembled so many of you from different backgrounds, I really wanted to throw out this first question, okay? Because this kind of just cuts to the chase. What's the one thing you wish every parent knew when they think about going back to school? Whoa. and I can't wait to hear the responses. So I'm going to actually go, I wonder if I should go count. I'm going to go kind of who's on the screen. So that means Heather, you're going to be first. Is that okay?
Works for me.
Okay, let's do it.
So I put a little bit of a mix in my own response, plus I kind of surveyed my team. So that's preschool through fourth grade teachers. And there was a running list, of course. We could say all the things, but to really distill it, we came up with, and I think as me as an administrator, definitely want to say this to families, that kids change from year to year. And so as you're thinking about that re-entry into a new grade, that the grace to grow, change, mature, whether it's about behaviors or interests or friendships, that these things are things that morph and we can't hold on to it, not either for your own child or put that on other people's kids. Give room for them to change and grow from year to year.
Wow. I absolutely love that. I love that. Okay. So if you thought that was helpful or you have comments or, throw that in the chat. And again, use that hashtag to be entered to win. Okay. Beth, you're next.
I think when I'm thinking about parents, having an IEP, which is an individualized education program, or a 504, like some sort of protection plan for education, I always really feel like parents don't really fully know their rights and that they can call a meeting in the beginning of the year after a couple of weeks if things are changing. And just like Heather said, if a kid changes from year to year, and you see that a little bit over the summer, then you can call a meeting to get the team back together and say, hey, the plan needs to change a little bit because kids do change. Mm-hmm. And then just to kind of throw this in there too, it's all about relationships, right? So you're forming new relationships. Your kid is too. So just give yourself a little bit of grace because those take time too. So it's new.
Yeah, that's great. And that's true every year. I mean, everybody changes on the team and we have to give grace to everybody as they're learning and establishing that relationship working together. That's wonderful. Dr. Palmer.
Yeah, wow. I'm learning so much already. Nuggets of wisdom I can pass on to my patients too. And hopefully some of them are watching. I would say that in general, as a pediatrician, I usually will see well-child visits through the summer. And I tell parents, in general, about 2 weeks before school starts back, whatever the new routine is going to be, you want to start introducing that. And I mean, kids get very excited about back to school shopping, their new shoes, their new backpack. I think that's all part of, getting them back into the routine, but getting their sleep in order, getting them back to kind of thinking about school. I would say don't start any later than 2 weeks before school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got to get back into routine, and it takes some time to do that, not the night before.
Right.
Yes. Yes, that's a great one. Thank you so much. And again, as you're watching and you have reactions or you agree with something or you want to clarify, don't be shy. Put that comment in there in that chat box. Okay. Dr. Thorne.
Hello. I think for my kiddos, I've got 4 of my own, and then the kids that I see myself. I think talking to them about what they feel comfortable with is really big. So let's talk about, what are you excited about and what are you kind of afraid of? And let's walk through that. So giving them kind of a roadmap for what this might look like. So, which is why back to school nights are so important, just to meet your teacher, see your classroom, so that you get a mental map of what this is going to be like. And if you need a break, who can you go to? If you've got an IEP, who are your point people? Who can we talk to? Because so many kids, I think it's, just all of our nervous systems are going to shut down with something new. It's freaky. It's scary. I don't know what to do here. And so having somebody kind of say, okay, what are you most excited about and afraid about? And let's make a game plan.
Yeah, I love, love, love that. That actually was one of the points that I had on my back to school
I'm
blog.
sorry.
No, I mean, great minds think alike, I think.
Thunder.
No, I love it. I love it. So again, so important to kind of just talk to them, have that conversation, because I think especially kids with ADHD, and I just say that because I work with a lot of kids with ADHD or anxiety, they may have had experiences, either positive or negative, that influence and color how they think about school. And so we want to invite that because we know that big transition's coming up. We want to talk about the elephant in the room. And if we can do that in a positive way that invites them just to kind of share those feelings so that we can understand how to better support them and help them reframe some of those negative thoughts. Like I like to ask them too, if parents are finding a lot of those comments are more negative, try to dig deep and say, hey, well, tell me, like, what are you most excited to do in school? And like, if it's going to have lunch or seeing a friend or like seeing an old teacher, have them at least talk about that and remember those positive experiences so that we can kind of start to reframe the feeling associated with school and try to build on that. So Dr. Brown.
This is so good. Yes. Well, we are starting school in about 2 weeks. So I'm taking all this in because I have 2 of my own. But I would say, from my perspective, I think one of the foundations to our kids' learning and emotion regulation and being able to thrive in, with change, right, is really building that good sleep foundation. And look, like Dr. Palmer said, those are not things that we can just shift overnight because over the course of the summer, schedules have shifted, it's bright out. And so really starting to move things back, but starting from a place of having a conversation with them. So it's not like, it's not jarring, and really helping them understand that, okay, we're going to start to move things back. And ideally, yes, I think 2 weeks is perfect as a point to start. So I'm right there right now. But even if you've already started school, it's not too late to really start to make those shifts.
Yes. I expect more discussion about this, Dr. Brown, in a little bit, because I think, how do you actually do that? So I think, well, let's put a pin in that one. Okay, Lee.
Yes, everyone has had wonderful things to say, and to build on what Heather and Dr. Palmer has said, growth and setting things up 2 weeks before. We're very big into systems. The mother having ADHD and then having a child who has ADHD, it's very important. And I tell even neurotypical parents, you put systems into place that will help them get out of the house on time, help them do their homework, get in and flow into the home, flow into being a kid. And it helps the parents, it helps the whole dynamic. And then also looking at what worked last year, what Heather was saying, change and grow that, analyze what worked last year, where we put our homework, where we put our backpacks, and what are they going to need for this year with how they grew over the summer.
Yeah. And I love that part of that conversation can be celebrating those wins, what worked, and then troubleshooting and collaborating together, problem solving. What are the areas that you're worried about, or what's the one thing that, is a challenge for you? Let's kind of put our brains together and like try to figure this out and test it, see what we can do. Definitely. I love that because you can inspire hope, right?
So much more relaxed when you get out of the house.
Yep. Thank you for that. That's great. Marissa.
Yeah. So piggybacking off of what several of our colleagues said here, definitely the importance of a routine. So getting into that nighttime routine, but also that day-to-day in the morning. So your child needs to know what they can expect, because we all thrive off of a predictable schedule and knowing what's to come. There's comfort in that. Adding into that the literacy component, it's so important that children not only read every night, but are still read to. So even those upper elementary aged kids, they benefit from listening to, one of their grownups at home reading aloud from a chapter book with them, or taking turns, or, even if they're reading an interesting article from National Geographic to their child. There's so much benefit in hearing that information and processing it, as well as reading aloud. So I just highly encourage families to make reading a part of your routine regularly.
I love it. I love it. And as pediatricians, right? I mean, we talk about this, the importance of that in our well child visits too. So anybody want to add, Kieran, do you want to add to that, Dr. Palmer?
Oh, absolutely. I am a huge advocate for literacy. We used to have books in our rooms before COVID hit, and I'm looking wistfully at my stacks of books and trying to think, when can we reintroduce those? When does it feel like it's okay to do that? But I think there's room for exposing kids to books and using books as ways to learn, but also ways to be entertained from the time they're babies. And what I tell parents is, even that 4-month-old that's gnawing on the cardboard book, right? Or the kid the toddler that's sitting in the tub and flipping through the waterproof bathtub book, like, to look at books as a source of entertainment, I think just introduces like a lifelong experience where you're enjoying a book. And then later on, they want to sit on your lap and you can, read to them. My son likes to read to me from National Geographic and Ripley's Believe It or Not. And my thought is, whatever you want to read, go for it. I don't necessarily press the chapter books because he has ADHD too. Mm-hmm. But whatever he wants to read, go for it. I'm listening.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, as you're listening to these comments, or if you have specific questions, remember, we've got some great experts on here. So even if we don't necessarily bring up the topic, but you have a burning question, please feel free to drop those anytime, because I'm monitoring those comments and questions. So this is as much interactive with those of you watching right now live. Okay. All right. Well, so on to our next question, because obviously all of you have hit the nail on the head here, talking about 2 weeks back to school. Let's get into routine. I've heard the R word many, many times from many of you. So I guess I'm going to ask, like, what are your top tips, knowing you are, what you do day to day, for helping families get back into school routine, whether that be for reading or for sleep or for whatever, it is. What are your top tips for this? Again, not to put Heather on the spot, but I wonder, should we go backwards, or you're good? Okay, you're good. Let's do it.
I'm up for whatever.
Okay, Heather, let's go.
Yeah. So when I think about this, aside from, the pain but benefit of doing things the night before, which I'm not great at. So I was trying to think of the things that have been really helpful for both my own family and what we've seen, especially over COVID. And I think what we've come up with is really a social emotional routine. And it's more about establishing how you're communicating with your kid and how much that matters. So this has been that really, we always see the gap for our kids. We establish these really awesome routines in early childhood because we're digging for information, and we've seen it kind of just slump. And I know with my own kid, he's going into 8th grade. We really started noticing, talking to our middle school families, that you kind of fell into that gap again, that if you didn't ask the questions in early childhood, you get the fine, good, whatever answers. And so we really kind of put together the idea that we're really looking at families who are establishing an open connection, talking to your kid, even thinking about the first day of school or early on, and fronting the idea that I'm going to be asking you after school how the day went. And I want you to tell me what you had for lunch and who you sat with. And it gives processing time, is what we found, so that they're not just put on the spot. They can kind of think about those things. And so you might have richer kind of communication starting there at that. And then the benefit of that is that the kids kind of talk about being more comfortable to talk about when things don't go necessarily the best, because those positive communication trends happen. And it's a little bit cheesy for some folks, and we do it a lot in early childhood, but bringing back the idea of something, we call it rosebud thorn. So, whether it's at the dinner table, but not forgetting that those older kids, especially upper elementary, use those prompts regularly to establish those routines about how you're learning about your kid's day, and let them take part in how to communicate. So it's not just who did something wrong, who don't you like, what went wrong. You're working in a chance to talk about positive, negative, and needs.
Oh, I love that. Can
Awesome.
what do you call that? You said the rosebud?
We call it rose is
Rosebud
something
thorn.
good, and a bud is something that you're looking forward to, and a thorn is something that didn't go so great.
Oh, I love that.
We
And
use that
so,
at dinner too.
yeah,
Me too.
I love setting them up beforehand, letting them know the night before.
This is what I'm going to ask you.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow. Okay. Anybody want to piggyback off of that? Because that was so good. Does anybody else do that at home?
So I worked at a wilderness-based high school for kids with autism and ADHD, and we did that every single night. And it was middle school age kids. So I love that you say that, because it was kind of corny in the beginning, but then once you get into it, it's not
They
at all.
love it.
It doesn't feel weird. Yeah, I love it.
And I think especially as parents, when we model that for them, like here are the things they may not know what to say, but then we model it like here was something, I'm really looking forward to, or here's my favorite thing, or something that was tough. And it gives them that opportunity to see too that like, yeah, we have hardships too. It's okay. Nobody has us all figured out.
That's
I
right.
agree with that. I think it's important to model those conversation skills, not only with your children, but with your partner. If you have a partner at home, I'm noticing now my 4.5-year-old will sometimes say, "Mommy, how was your day? Did you have something you wanted to share about your day?" Which is really neat. It's hard for young children to think outside of themselves. So just the fact that, she's even just learning that skill, that kind of routine of, I need to ask someone else about their day. That's pretty neat.
That is neat. I love it. Good job. I love that. Okay, hold on one second. I have a comment here, and then we're going to go back to Beth. Okay, hold on. So Meg, so the new thing I'm trying this school year is a student planner. I bought a planner for my 5th and 3rd grader. At our family meeting on Sundays, I was going to have them write in their activities and schedule for the week. Any tips on how to help my kids buy into this new strategy? Do I have them write it when to do their homework or no? All right. Who's going to help with this one? Any thoughts? Okay. I see a couple of questions raised. So we'll do Lee first, and then I think Dr. Thorne, and then anybody else.
I found it more effective to use visual aids with the homework, even if it's ABA tools, which is used for autism, just cards that say time for homework, and you can give it to any kind of visual aid. The writing and the verbal is not processed as quickly as a visual aid for the younger children. So writing it in, I found it to be a little cumbersome for my special needs child and my neurotypical child.
Great. Dr. Thorne.
So I love that too, to have the visual in front of them.
Yes.
I think so many kids with ADHD struggle. I know myself, like if you're just talking to me and I'm not paying attention, I'm what? No, I need to like see it in front of me. So the other thing I think is this is a great opportunity to help your kid recognize that everybody learns differently. And so to ask them like, hey, when do you learn best? So if we're going to do your homework, do you want to do it right when you get home from school? Do you want to have a snack first and take a break? So then you're kind of like, hey, I know it's not maybe your favorite thing, but let's think about when it's going to be the best for you so that you can actually get the benefit of the homework.
Yes. Thanks for saying that. Because, in my class that we teach, we do that. We actually explore when is their optimal time. I mean, because as parents, we have an idea, right? We kind of want to get them to do it right away, because otherwise we're like, oh my gosh, then it's going to be lost and we're not going to get them back. But we do introduce that concept of talking to kids and inviting their opinions and why. Maybe it's even just like, I need to have a snack and I want to walk the dog first. That's okay, right?
Perfect.
Right. So, but at least having that conversation, because kids are, by inviting them to kind of offer their opinions and their thoughts, we're also inviting them to share any of those thoughts and feelings, whether or not we can agree to disagree, but we can start, having that conversation, right?
And then it's not homework is I'm going to refuse. It's we know we have to do that.
Yes.
When would you like to do it? When does that work for you?
Yes, absolutely.
And they can still use the planner. You could get stickers, however, and if they want to do it at 3:30 after school, if that's when they're done, you put the sticker there. And it's
Yes.
more fun for the third grader, for example.
Yes.
I like the commenter's idea of, having that Sunday meeting where you're setting that whole routine for the week. Like, here's our plan, here's our structure. It helps kids think forwards, because sometimes I think time is really difficult for young people, and even
Yes.
for us adults, especially if we have other things going on, like ADHD or anxiety. So having that visual and just being able to think about, like, okay, here are the different chunks of time that I have, and I can break these up to achieve a goal. We have like a magnet board at home, and it's a smaller one, and I've actually made just like little white magnets, and we have just visuals like soccer practice, school, doctor's appointments, different things, and we just go over that on Sundays kind of quickly as a family, but we just kind of talk about what to expect for each day. And that way we can think about that time, that week, and not just panic about one day and getting things done. When you think about assignments, you can start to help your child think through, what might this look like if we need multiple steps to achieve that?
Well, and one of the things that's actually really, really neat that's kind of come up in everybody's comments, and also the mother that posted, is that this is actually this is helping promote executive functioning skills and developing that, which as a parent, I find sometimes very, very hard to do. And it actually applies for kids of all ages. So children as young as Marissa's children, but even like middle school and high school, they're all struggling to develop this ability to plan ahead. And we grown-ups should be doing the same thing. So we can maybe actually even do it, if we have older children, do it side by side. So this is mommy's week, this is my son's week. But I love that idea with the visual magnets too.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because we know that the frontal lobe is still developing until age 25, right? And that's where executive functions originate. And kids with ADHD, we know that they're lagging behind in those executive functioning skills up to 3 to 5 years. So it's really important to externalize that information. So I love all these strategies so far. So hopefully, Meg, that was helpful. And let us know. Thank you for asking the question. Okay. Beth, I'm going back to you.
Yeah. So we were talking about routines, right?
Yes.
So Lee actually talked about this a little bit, but when you are a parent, my number one pet peeve about like school teams is putting parents on the spot. And if you think about, okay, we're problem solving this routine. If you figure some stuff out that works, you can tell the school that. And if they do have a 504 or an IEP, that's actually an accommodation. So that communication between what you're figuring out at home and actually communicating that with the school and getting it into their plan is awesome. And it's the same thing with stuff that doesn't work, right? I had a parent last week tell me that checklists do not work for her kid. She chucks the checklist across the room and really hates them. Those are all great things to tell the school so that they don't hand your kid a checklist, right? So it's all an experiment on what's going to work for your family and for your specific kid, but make sure that you're kind of stepping back and kind of reflecting on that routine to figure out what is working and what isn't working, and then share that with the rest of the people involved with your kid.
Yes, that is so important. And thank you for bringing that up, Beth, because as you know, there's different ways that people learn, right? And so assuming that, what works for one student is going to work for the other is not necessarily a good thing to do. It oftentimes needs that tailoring. But I love that. Thank you. Anybody else want to piggyback off of that comment or other thoughts?
I think also knowing that you could be firm when you take those systems to the school. I know a couple of things I brought to them. They said, well, the teacher doesn't do it that way. But I know it would work well for my son. And just being firm that, I really would like to try this, because it is intimidating, but they do in the end need to understand you are part of the committee and you do have a voice, and they're not necessarily telling you what to do. It's a team effort.
Yeah.
Any other comments? I know that we have 2 educators on here in terms of, how, and again, this is going to be another question, but, any other thoughts related to that? I mean, do you welcome families sharing that information with you?
all the time.
All the
often, I
time.
think,
And the educators usually do. I don't mean to cut you off. It's
No.
usually the committee members that it's hard to, connect to the educators.
I think it's a matter of, this is kind of a little bit of what I was going to say on the next one, but it's really trying, when you can at all, find we call it the trust manager on the back end. It might not always be the teacher, it might not always be an administrator, but most often you've got a relationship with somebody that can help you establish that communication. And you might find yourself repeating information to just cover bases, but most often it works so well when you have kind of that project manager person that you trust to be able to communicate those things with, that you feel good about is advocating for you. So don't always just assume it needs to be your classroom teacher. It's a very active person there. It doesn't always have to be the administrator. It can be somebody else that just knows your kid from 2 years ago and ask if they can have a role in helping you communicate. But looking for that person that you feel good is out there helping you get connected with the whole team that's talking about your kid.
Yeah, and a lot of times that just comes down to communication style. Somebody who's a really direct communicator, as far as like a parent goes, you might hit somebody wrong in the school team and they think that you're too aggressive. Or so if the reverse can be true too. So like I think it's good that Heather is talking about like it is supposed to be a whole team, and maybe somebody is just way more approachable for you as the parent because your communication styles are more the same. But yeah, I mean, if you're not feeling heard, then there's a process to go through to go up the ladder to find out who's above that person and who's above that person. And that all goes back to parent rights as well. So yeah, it can be really overwhelming to know who to go to when things aren't going well.
I have to say, I just wanted to add to that. Our kids here in Oregon went for a very long time without going back to school in person. And, I'd say my sense as we got ready to go back to school last fall is I just want to hug a teacher, and say, thank you for being there for our children. And just, to kind of remind parents and families that even though educators and administrators are, doing a job, there's a big piece of it where they're actually like doing what they're passionate about. And, all parents, I think, really want children to have people in their lives that are helping to support them. And so I think if we kind of come to school and those dialogues with administrators and teachers with that perspective, I think maybe we're able to collaborate a little bit better and actually achieve the end goal, which is really helping support a child through school. There was something else that I was going to add to that, which is my role as a pediatrician really has changed quite a bit over the pandemic. I have developed more skills in treating children with medication for different mental health issues, which is not my first choice at all. But one of the things that I developed in my practice was because I had administrators, counselors, psychologists reaching out to me, and just the day in the life of a pediatrician, especially during a pandemic, and then just all the illnesses that come up, we're just kind of back to back with appointments. And so what I started doing, and this might be something for families to kind of inquire with their pediatricians, is could you schedule a time to talk to the teacher? Like, can you actually put 15 minutes from 2:45 to 3 o'clock or after the kids go home, just to, get on a call with a counselor or something. And I think that makes it a lot more effective for the counselor who may have just called your office and they're sitting there waiting for 10 or 15 minutes. And then for the physician who's running behind and trying to get to that phone call. So I think that might be a way to kind of promote better collaboration between medical or psychologists and counselors with the medical doctor in the office, because we can help in that way too.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for promoting that too, because I think the thing that I've learned in my own practice as a behavioral pediatrician is that, we collect rating scales from educators and other folks on the team. And sometimes it gets so easy to kind of go down the line and circle. But I always find such great value in just even connecting for 5-10 minutes with the teacher or the daycare provider or the tutor, the therapist, and just have a touch base with them, because then you just learn so much more and they value that too. So for parents watching, if you haven't yet kind of asked your pediatrician if they could do that, ask, I mean, many of them really want to support you in any way they can. It's just kind of finding the time for the teachers and their planning scheduling time, and then the doctors in between appointments and things like that. But it can happen. It can happen. Hold on. I want to share this. So again, from a Facebook user. This is going back to checklists. I've tried many different kinds of checklists. The only thing that works is physically following my boys around every morning to make sure they do everything. And it's tiring. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. me. Oh my gosh. Facebook user. If you're still watching live, can you make sure that we're touching on this? But Dr. Thorne, do you have something to say about this?
Oh my goodness, that's my jam right there. I love it. So figure out what motivates your kid and get some visual, whether it's tokens, however many things that you have you need them to do. And maybe it's 5 things, maybe it's 10 things, whatever it is. And they have a jar that as soon as they do one and they put it in the jar and they run and do the next thing. And then they come back and they have to read the thing. What's the next thing? Or it's a picture. And so it's a game. And then, they get it finished and then they get some kind of prize at the end. But it's like, nobody likes to do chores. Nobody likes to have that done. But if you have some incentive behind it, kids are like, this is a blast, So I think I love the idea of like, how can we make this fun? If we're going to have to clean up, you get all the red stuff, I'll get all the blue stuff or whatever. And then like they see you doing the same thing and they're in.
Yeah. I love that. Love the token idea. I will try anything. Well, you'll have to report back and let us know how that works.
Well, and then you can also have them work together that they get the prize when both of them are done. So if there's something that they need to collaborate on, then they do it together and they have one jar that like, ooh, fill up the jar. And then you guys get to do like water balloons at mom and dad or something,
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Like I said, I have 4. They're all like, in what way can we throw a water balloon at mom? Yes.
Anybody else want to comment on that? I think
that was my life. And I was extremely frustrated by the checklists and the index cards with the lists. And I had one of those Shark Tank moments. There had to be a better way. And I said, I think I'm going to make them bracelets. So that's how I came up with Wrist Flips routine bracelets, because the routine charts and the checklists, they did have to keep running back and forth. So they just wear them and there's brush teeth, fix hair, get dressed. They flip it over. They see the positive word and they know what's left to do.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just like, I went on a silicone. It was during lockdown. They couldn't get to their Chromebooks. You have an ADHD.
I think you both.
No, we lost your audio.
We missed
that last part. Say that again one more time.
I went on a silicone website and made like a prototype for the kids, and I saw how well it worked. That was my life.
That's great.
Yes, and hello, Lee. Thank you. Here's my. I do not drink water enough. And this is great because, where's my camera? I swear I know where my camera is. This one says water. And then when you flip it over, I get a magnificent. I know, right? So where can I buy these? Well, hold on 1 second. I will tell you. So you can go to wristflips.com, right? And, we have this just for tonight, 15% off of your entire order. Use this code. LTKH, Let's Talk Kids Health loves Wrist Flips, right?
Love that.
So go check it out. And for our raffle, we might as well say we're giving away 2 sets of those routine bracelets. So keep those comments coming.
Can I be in the raffle?
Oh, yes, you can. Yes.
You're going to have to comment though.
Oh my gosh, look at, yes, I totally want. Those are amazing. Look at those.
I know.
Those are
Great
so
idea.
cool.
Yeah, my son is 11 now. He only needs the backpack and brush teeth now, and that was the biggest thing. It just started retaining.
Yes.
And now I go up. He still stays downstairs. I say put your wrist flip on, and I see him when he's sleeping and it's flipped, and I check his toothbrush and it's wet. I'm like, yes.
That's so great.
He doesn't want to hear me. It's like Charlie Brown.
Yep. Yeah. But isn't that awesome? Like it's like right there on your wrists. And you just Yes.
Lee, do you have one for read a book?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'd love to do clean.
There's an
room,
idea.
clean cut, read a book. Yeah, I have to. I got to work on
It's
that.
coming.
One woman
It's coming.
shop.
It's coming.
Yep.
Meg has a comment. She can relate to this, especially the bedtime routine. I think we were talking about that, Yeah. So, Dr. Brown, I mean, I gotta bring you in.
Yeah, I love the wristlets. I think that's phenomenal. I know that, incorporating a routine depending on the age of your child can be a nightmare. But one of the things that I try to build in terms of routines for kids is trying to touch upon three main aspects. So one is nutrition. So depending on how old your child is, they may still need like a little snack. And I would prefer you follow that order. That way, we're not at the end of the routine and it's time for bed and they're suddenly hungry. And then we need to go downstairs and then we need to brush our teeth and everybody's running upside down. So I think we'll start with nutrition and then you follow it with the hygiene. So the brush teeth or, PJs, whatever. And then the last piece is the bonding. And when we talk about routines, I think it's really important, especially bedtime routines, to find things that they enjoy that you also look forward to, So I think that also helps. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate or complicated. So I love that, we push the bonding to the end because that's the time where we get to just okay, debrief a little bit about our day. Okay, talk about a few things. I love this rosebud thorn. In case you didn't get to do it at dinner time, you could still incorporate that. So making it something that they really look forward to. And when we talk about reward systems and tokens and things like that, I think that's phenomenal. But also it could be things that are not tangible. Like if we finish, we have, 15 or 20 minutes for our routine. If we are done in time, guess what? We have that extra time, that extra 5 minutes where you get to talk more, you get to tell me more about your day or something like that. So really finding a way to connect with them around things that they enjoy and just kind of fit that in. As part of routines, especially because with school and, depending on where your child is in terms of their shift in their sleep, if they're still kind of getting adjusted to the new school year, you can just think through parts of the morning, the things that could potentially be hectic, how we can move that to the evening. So is it making sure that, the lunch is packed and already in the fridge? Is it making sure that book bag, everything is all set by the door? If we do all that really in the evening, is it picking out what they're going to wear for the day? So making that something that's done earlier so that in the morning, they can get a little extra time to sleep in if they still need to. And then hopefully that minimizes some of the chaos.
Yes, I love that.
Breakfast burritos or something.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah. Tonight we'll have time to eat a nice breakfast.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Because we do that concept. And one of the family missions in Teach Me ADHD is developing your own launching pad. And so that idea is, so that way it just takes the stress out of the mornings because mornings are always stressful, right? But we also want to teach our kids those executive function skills. So how to organize, how to prioritize, how to plan, and externalizing a lot of those systems and putting it in place in the day. So that way it's not stressful and more predictable, right? I love it, love it, love it. Okay. Gosh, where did we leave off? Dr. Thorne, right? Or no, Dr. Palmer. You did.
I already, yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Mhm.
Yes. Oh, I can't hear you, Michelle. Dr. Thorne.
So sorry, I
there we
muted it because I have 7,000 children going on. But I think we had made our way almost to the end again.
Yes.
We were wrist flips is what they're called, not wristlets. Wrist flips.
Yes. Okay, so you did give yours. It's time. Marissa. Oh, yes, Marissa. Please.
Sure.
We need
I think it's
tokens for each of us for who's
I know.
turns.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
I think it's important for us to remember that routines take time. Settling in takes time. So we need to give ourselves grace in helping our children and family get those established. And we need to make sure that we help give the school and the teacher some grace in getting those routines and relationships established. So, for example, one of my children is having a really hard time going back to school, and she's been very emotional. And it's funny how it's never the kid that you think is going to struggle, it's the other one. And as a parent, I want to swoop in and figure out like what's going on. What are we going to do? What's the teacher doing? What are they not doing? And I think it's important just to breathe and model that for our children. Like, okay, we can talk about it. Let's think about it from a social emotional aspect. Let's give it some time. Sometimes these things just take time.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. I think as a parent, we all have kids, and we're all thinking about when our kids are struggling and not in a good place. It really does it hits you, and it doesn't matter what you do professionally, like that mama bear, like it just hits you, right? And you want to swoop in and do what you can. But I love that you're talking again about modeling, talking through your thought process. And again, that's modeling to them so that you're externalizing that information for them. And kids as young as 3, 4, they can pick up on that language, that wording that we had talked about earlier as well. Okay. Sorry about that, Marissa. I was like so caught up with like this conversation. I'm like, oh my gosh, where did we leave off? Thank you so much for giving me grace for that. Okay. So we are coming at 46 minutes. And I have another comment here. So hold on. I'm trying to man this at the same time. So I apologize. I'm going to do my best. So I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to pull up. So Meg has another question. He just won't do it. He won't get ready for bed, even though he loves reading, bonding before bed. I started telling him that he's not going to get screen time the next day if I have to keep nagging him to get ready for bed. How bad is that? But I'm desperate. P.S. My kids sleep in their clothes for the next day, so that saves them a step in the morning.
So do mine, Meg. I have found that with my ADHD, I do much better prepping the night before. If it's the next morning, I've got to get it all done. That we either set clothes out or we have them sleep in their clothes. So totally hear that.
Yes, it's okay. It's all right, right? My son used to not sleep under the covers because he's like, I don't want to make my bed.
Oh my God, I love that. 100%.
That works.
Good job.
That
Jack.
works.
I know. I was just like, really? Aren't you going to be cold? He's like, but that's why I have this other blanket. I just pull it over. Yeah. Okay.
That's genius.
Genius. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about Meg's question, and I don't know, obviously, the age of her kid. The thing that comes to mind for me is maybe a sense of control. That maybe that's really what it's about. And sometimes we recommend when parents come to us with the same type of questions about, maybe it's about you need to be in your room at this time and it's a lights out, like scaffolding it in a way that gives person a sense of you're winding down and just backing up a little bit on the what you're needing him to do, which is always going to be, and maybe and creating a really backed off scaffold, and it just kind of takes a deep breath, to be able. It's kind of like you don't need to eat, like how much do you need to eat on your plate type of approach, like the battle that you're willing to have. Mm-hmm. And if it's about maybe just settling down however he feels comfortable, as long as it starts like here's the expectation. And if you don't follow it, then you have to lean in a little bit more perhaps, but maybe it's a little bit about finding where you can release some of that control to allow him to establish the routine that feels good, and go from there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Meg said he's 8 and stubborn as possible. Yes, control.
Which means he's strong-willed and he knows what he wants. So let's ask him. So you seem to be having a lot of trouble with bed, buddy. So what's going on? How can I help you? Because you do better when you get good sleep, and that's why it's important. So I would love to hear from you what it is that would make this easier for you. Is it easier for you to like get everything ready ahead of time, or that we do, we read your book at 5 o'clock instead? We can change this up based on how it fits for you. But you need to be the one to kind of help me, because we're not getting out of this. You're going to have to sleep.
Yes.
Right.
I love that idea. I love the idea of kind of giving him some, because you're right. It's that sense of control that he needs. Another thing that I really do encourage, especially for either if you are someone who has anxiety or a child that has ADHD, sometimes that buffer zone needs to be extended. And what I mean by buffer zone is just that wind down time between the day and when it's time to sleep. So sometimes if they've been going at like full force and they're reaching this halt, they're just not ready yet to make that transition. And so at times starting off a little earlier, again, after having that conversation of like what would work for you to get this done, we're both on the same page. We have a goal we want to accomplish, which is to get you in bed because you function better the next day. And then building in either activities or things like that that will encourage wind down longer than some other kids. So for some people, 20 minutes is all they need to transition from the day into getting ready for bed. But some kids, especially kids with ADHD, sometimes they need a longer wind down time.
Oh,
And time timers work wonders, especially if they're doing something they don't want to stop doing. Like if it's a video game or social media, whatever might be going on with screen time, especially, or just that transition, those timers are really key. And I have one on my desk myself.
Yes, me
but,
too.
But it can really help set the tone there to establish some co-regulation for each of you.
I was just going to say, and Heather, you said co-regulation, which is perfect too, but my OT brain is going to the environment as well. What is happening in that environment? And can you, like 10 minutes before you kind of want him to make that transition, can you turn down the lights? Can you turn off the TV? Can the TV be on a timer so it turns off by itself? Oh, that's it. I don't have control over it either. It just goes off. Like, what is happening? Like, does he feel like he's going to miss out on something? Like, what else is going on in the environment that you can control easily? But my favorite is just turning down lights, making it a more calmer space. So it's like an easy transition into that quiet bedroom.
Yes. Dr. Palmer.
I was going to add from my pediatrician brain, which is even kind of pulling back just from the bedtime routine itself. One of the things I've noticed with my patients, regardless of the age, is if they are very active during the day, they tend to sleep better. And it takes out some of that fight at bedtime. Because I have one of those that fights at bedtime and fights the bedtime routine. I'm like, we've been doing this for 10 years. Why? Anyway, but the days we go to soccer practice, there really isn't a whole lot of discussion about bedtime because his body is just begging to sleep. And then that bedtime routine is a very welcome thing. And then he just sleeps very well. So if parents are on the fence about, and I know that, a lot of parents are busier than ever, but if you're on the fence about whether or not to enroll your child in sports, if there's something that they're kind of interested in doing, I'd say go for it. Because first of all, it's just healthy for your body, but it's also healthy for your mind and it helps you sleep better at night.
So Meg, so I should not take the screen away the next day if he doesn't get ready for bed. I'm pretty sure I know this answer.
You don't want to battle of wills at bedtime. That is not fun.
Yes.
You can offer a second book. I do that with my daughter. She likes to take an hour and a half showers, and so I say if you use the visual timer and you could get this done in 15 minutes, we could do 2 or 3 books instead of 1, and that usually gets her going. Try the positive reinforcement first.
Well, I'm thinking about what Dr. Brown said about, your child might need a more extended routine as part of that bedtime. There are some days that we decide, you know what, let's have a little bit more family bonding time. We usually pull out like a board game a couple nights a week, just so that we're doing something together as a family. We're kind of bringing it down. We're not like totally chill, of course, during that game because we get super competitive, but it's just one of those things that, we're physically transitioning upstairs. That's where we keep the kids' games. We're already in one of their rooms. And I found that that's really helpful, especially on those nights when they don't have sports.
Yeah.
I would say some of those activities, it might be that joint activity of like, we're coloring, or, we're doing a puzzle, or we're doing something that's like, we're all kind of together, but it's not, we're engaged, but it might be more quiet and it's easier to like, okay, one more piece. And then I think it's time for us to be done and move from there.
Yeah, I love these. Okay, so we have one more big question to ask round robin. But, I mean, I think at the heart of what we're talking about, it going back to school, we've talked about routine. We've talked about your team and taking your experience from the year before, what works, what doesn't. But at the heart of this is the relationship and communication with those at school, right? So I'm going to open it up for anyone to talk about some of the strategies you found in your practice or with working with families on this to promote positive, two-way, clear communication between families and teachers, the teacher and doctor psychologist, doctor therapist, whatever, but how to promote that team communication so it is um, positive and working.
Me.
Okay, go. Marissa.
So from the educator side, I think anytime that you can have a face-to-face conversation with someone, you're going to be building that relationship so much more. I think with email and even phone calls, sometimes we can get things misconstrued and we don't understand, maybe the tone. And I think it's just so much more relational when you can set aside time for someone, take time out of your day, set a meeting where you're face to face, and you can really talk and share about successes and concerns. I've found that, even if maybe I've had a rough start with someone relationally, it's a lot easier to connect with them when we kind of come together in a physical space. That's been really helpful.
I love that. I love that. I mean, in person, I know it was hard with COVID, right? Because there was none of that, but I think we're slowly getting back into that in different parts of the country. So if you can, opt for in person.
I think mine from that same viewpoint is really practical, probably more so than anything. But I would say just on behalf of knowing how the teacher shortage is affecting schools, with planning ahead for time for teachers to be able to be engaged, whether that's contacting your provider and having those conversations, or if you're saying, hey, we're going to the doctor this week, anything you want to add, which is a great thing to just establish as a practice anyway, and finding your person who you can do that with. Give us about 3 to 5 days, whenever possible. 3 days is the sweet spot to be able for teachers to ask for that time from their administrators to be able to find coverage so they can actually have time to do that, rather than maybe after school. The time is always for everybody a thing, but I think these last 2 years and going into this year, I can tell you it's even more so of a crunch. It's harder to get the person next door just to cover your class while you go have a 15-minute conversation. It's not like it has been. And so with that in effect, it is put the onus on you as parents sometimes to think ahead, which I'm horrible at myself. But to be able to say, hey, if we've got, something coming up that we would love that voice from the school, give us a little bit of a lead time to work with whenever you can.
Mm-hmm. That's a great tip. Anybody else? Beth?
I mean, the one thing that I really help parents do, and you don't have to have like an educational plan to do this, but I love helping parents figure out like 1 to 2 priorities for the next year, and to be able to put that like in a vision statement to say, oh, I would love to see this be part of their education. And it's just one sentence. It's so quick to communicate that. And when you put it in such a positive light, like, I really want to focus on this skill for my child in this year or over the next 2 years, then all of a sudden everybody gets focused on that vision statement and everybody can be on the same page. I also just really love stories. As an educator, I remember when parents tell us funny stories or good stories or funny, just kind of comical stories about their kids, and that sticks. And so when we're talking about, the little time that we have to communicate, if you communicate that your kid is awesome and give them something to remember, it just sticks in their head so much more.
Oh, I love that. The vision statement and stories. Love it. Dr. Palmer.
I was going to say that I think a lot of times when I have conversations with parents about concerns from school, or if they're having concerns at school, I think sometimes they're a little bit hesitant to come and see the pediatrician about it. And I would just encourage parents sort of to think of their pediatricians of more than just somebody who does the well-child visit and is diagnosing asthma or allergies or ear infections. We're very much a part of the group of grown-ups in a kid's life that can actually help contribute to giving parents maybe a little bit of context about like what they might be seeing in their child, because I think a lot of times like we just sort of see our children growing up and we kind of get used to him being the boy that doesn't sit still in circle time. And that's okay in like when you're 3 or when you're 4, but it's still happening in kindergarten. And I think parents, it just kind of sneaks up on you. You're like, oh, well, that's just how he's always been. And why is the teacher saying something about this? And then my job is to say, well, because she sees like 20 other children. And the one that doesn't sit still in circle time is kind of, outside of the box. And so let me give you, a screening tool that you can take to your teacher. The school's just started, so give her about a month to really get to know your child. So there's a lot of things that pediatricians can do where we're not talking about medication or we're not diagnosing that ear infection, but we can kind of give parents some context so that when they come to school, they're already kind of a little bit educated about what that process might look like. So that when they come to the school administrators and teachers, they're already they've got a little bit of know-how, so that they kind of know what to expect, and they maybe there's not as big of a weight for the administrators and teachers to have to do that de novo, because now their pediatricians prep them. So I guess my message to parents would be, don't just come in for sick visits. Don't just come in for well-child visits. If you have a behavioral concern, start with your pediatrician, because we're usually the first person that you can see very quickly.
Yes, for sure. That is for sure. And I really love that. So just one thing that I do when I see families is to explain, we're part of a team and who's on the team. So I talk to them like, who's on our team? Let's kind of get this together. I always tell families to start a binder and important documents that everybody on the team, so that they have it with them and get into the routine of bringing it with them to the school, to the doctor's appointment, to the therapist, to the tutor, anything. So that way we have all that information right there. But then I also tell parents, explain, the consent to communicate to each other. And that means a form either on my end and the school's end, and, and how to do that. So that way they understand that, you can't just say, yeah, you can go and call them, because that's not how we do that. But I think arming them with that information and preparing them to know what to expect helps them feel much more able to advocate.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Dr. Brown?
I'm just going to jump in and say, as a subspecialist, I tend to see these kids when, there's a lot of stuff falling apart.
Yes.
But I think it's important to know, like, I love what, Dr. Palmer said as well, like we're on the same team. And sometimes there's some strategies that as pediatricians, as specialists, we can actually put in place that can be implemented in the IEP specifically. And I think it's when you bring us together and when you can, sort of tie those ends that magic happens. And so really, sometimes it may be like a form. For me, sometimes I need this child to have a prescribed 15-minute nap. Nobody else naps, yes, but he has to get some spot in the nurse's office where after lunch, he gets a 15-minute nap, and that's all they needed. So it's until we start to have those conversations, because you never know the resources that you have available until you go seeking for it. So I love that idea of just really reeling in whatever resources you have, because we connect the dots. We do.
Yes, we do. Yes. Lee, you had your hand up.
Yes. So I usually like to give it a week or two and then touch base with the teacher. So like you said, you're giving the teacher grace, letting them get started, and then say you want to review the 504 or IEP, or just talk about my child's personality. And when I do have that face-to-face conversation, also asking the teacher what they would need. Is there something on the IEP and 504 that's too cumbersome? And, do you want to try it out first and then report back to me and we can change it, and really trying to work together as a team, because we do appreciate the educators so much. They're going through so much the past 2 or 3 years. And just that little statement I have seen helps the relationship grow and be collaborative throughout the year.
Yep.
I have one quick thing to add,
Yes.
to speak on behalf of specialist teachers. So if you as a parent, especially if you're going through a huge change with your kid or just something that's super duper important, kind of your vision statement, establish relationships with your child's specialist teachers and not just their classroom teachers. Or make sure you bring that up because the transitions in and out of those specials, it's out of their home base usually, and just helping create that relationship in that team. That's part of the people who see your kid when sometimes this routine is different. And so sometimes it might bring things out. And we talk about that sometimes, but I really, to help kind of take away a barrier for those maybe more difficult moments, feel free to reach out to those teachers directly. They're just as easy to get a hold of, usually by email at least, or a phone call, and not feel that you maybe have to gatekeep through your classroom teacher only, or at least make sure you're talking about those specialist teachers and how they're interacting with your kid or with your IEP, and how those accommodations look outside of the classroom and they're everyday. We say all the time, especially if you have a diagnosis like ADHD or dyslexia, you're not just doing that in 140-minute block of your day. You're living that all of the time. And so just to be able to encourage that team talk abroad for your child's day.
I have a question actually for the panel, because I do have parents I have patients who are on medication, and as we transition medication, just for the educators and the therapists in the group, do you appreciate a heads up from the parents if there's been a medication change or if you forgot to give it that day? Okay.
Yeah. I see very big, like, yes.
Yeah, I do that
all the time.
I email if I see. Yep.
Yeah.
And
They're
sometimes
like,
I think
"Thank
we're
you
the first
so
to see
much."
it.
Who said
those
that?
those growth spurts, and
Yes.
sometimes seeing those off behaviors that feel like, I think usually it's almost always we can tell when a kid's had 2 off days in a row. And we've learned with some of our families just to be proactive in communicating that. And then we start to figure out the metabolism is changing. You're seeing some things at home, but communicating about medication is so important.
Yes.
As long as you feel comfortable. It's about being comfortable, and honoring privacy and or just your own family's view on it. But man, we can see it sometimes, and we want to be able to communicate what we're seeing, and sometimes it helps provide so much context.
Yeah. So I'll remind my families when we change medication, please let your teacher know we made this change.
As long as they feel comfortable. I have some families who don't, but they might inform whoever their trust person is at the school. Again, it's all about context.
Right. Well, and I too, just as a behavioral pediatrician, I mean, sometimes if we can, we try to do those changes either during break or the weekend, because sometimes parents want to be able to see for themselves what those potential changes and impact of medication titrations can happen, and they feel better about that. But if we can't, obviously, if parents feel comfortable, I always advocate for talking to the teacher ahead of time, because you're right, you are the one seeing them in the classroom, especially for those kids on ADHD medications. And I always tell parents when we start, like, you're probably not going to see a lot of the effects unless you make sure you're giving it on the weekends, and the teachers are going to see the bulk of the effect because it's during that school time when that medicine really is on board. So,
well, and that's when you're really protecting your kids' self-confidence at that point, because if everybody is expecting, this great behavior or regulation that they've had when they're on medication and something changes, they shouldn't be held to the same expectations because they're not feeling great. They're feeling different, right? They might be feeling better or worse, but it's just like us when we don't sleep well, right? We lower our expectations for ourselves, right? Because we have to. So that's just being kind to your teachers and to your kid as well.
Yes. Well, it's we are past time, so I apologize to my panelists who have been giving us their time tonight. Any last words before we do the quick raffle? And actually, I have the winner already, but I will announce that in a second. But anybody else want to say any last words before we sign off for the night? I think we covered a lot of ground, really. Yeah.
I think we just have to do another one.
I know, we will. Don't worry. I've already got a plan in place for October. So yes. Thank you so much, everybody. And I'm putting up wristflips.com again. That was such a big hit. Thanks, Lee, for joining us, because everybody loves those visuals. And go there, use that coupon code for 15% off your entire order. And I will make sure to put that link in the video show notes too. Okay. All right. So for those of you who responded, so you are going to get, the winner is going to get this brain plushie from Nerdbugs, a 15% off coupon for the Teach Me ADHD course registration for the next 12 months. But if you've already taken it, you can gift it to somebody who might need it. A 25% off coupon for the Sleep and Teens course from Restful Sleep MD, Dr. Brown. Thank you so much. You're going to get 2 packs of the Wrist Flips routine bracelets, which each set has 6 each as well. So you're going to get that. And then from Beth, Beth, can you just tell us very shortly about your virtual? You're going to get a free VIP ticket to the Virtual Parent IEP Advocacy Summit, September 22 to 25. So what is that about? Can you just tell us?
Yeah, so we've got 17 speakers coming to the summit, and it's all virtual, of course, and we're all talking about IEPs. So we have a theme for each day. There's a giveaway, there's a free Facebook group, and it's all free, but you get a VIP ticket for free, which just means that you get the videos access for a year, plus additional handouts from the speakers and discounts from the sponsors. So that's up for the raffle.
Yes, and I'm one of those speakers.
You are.
It's a lot of fun, and the lineup is amazing. So, how do people register if they want to?
They can go to theiplab.com/summit, and I can put that in the comments too, or send it to you.
Yes, let me put that in right now. So, say that one more time again.
The IEPlab.com/summit.
Yeah, got it. And I'm going to add that right now. Right there.
Perfect.
Got it. Okay. So if you want to secure your seats and go to that, please do check it out. It's going to be amazing. And that VIP ticket will get you access to the videos. So Meg, if you're still watching, you have won the raffle. So thank you so much for being an active participant today. And we will make arrangements to actually get those prizes to you. So thank you so much. Okay. So without further ado, because it is late, I'm going to have us all sign off. If you can, if I'm going to go quickly around, what's the one thing that you want parents to take away? Heather, go.
Grace, all the way around. Times everybody.
Okay. Beth. Meg, thank you.
I think just good communication and just bringing the human back in.
Love it. Dr. Palmer.
I would say being kind to the teachers, school administrators, and to your children. They've had some big social setbacks with COVID, so don't expect them to know how to socialize, right off the bat. Give them a little grace with that too.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Thorne.
Grace is such a beautiful word. I love that. But I also think patience. We don't have to do all this overnight, like small baby steps. That's what scaffolding is all about. So decide what this is the hill today, and we can let the other stuff go. And you can even say like, hey, we're going to get there, but let's just stay here.
Yes. Dr. Brown.
I love all of that. I would apply the same thing to sleep. So if you feel like most children and most adults are not sleeping enough, we're in a sleep deprived, society right now. And most of our kids are not getting enough sleep, but applying the same, and start from where you are. All you may need maybe to add 10 minutes to their total sleep time. That's okay. That's an okay place to start. Mm-hmm. And so whatever that may look like, it may look like just trying to get them into bed a little bit earlier, or whatever it is, whatever you can do. Give yourself grace and add and start gradually from where you are.
Yeah. Love it.
I need
love
that
it.
grace tonight because mine aren't in bed yet.
No, because I'm keeping you up too late. Okay, Lee.
I love the word grace as well, and adaptability and grace for yourself, and knowing it's okay to adapt every day and use a toolbox and not be stuck on one tool all the time.
Yes. Thank you for that. Marissa.
Yeah, I would say communication. So keeping an open line of communication with your child's entire team and making sure to loop in school and have them communicate if you feel comfortable. And then scaffolding. So I like what Dr. Thorne said, bit by bit, make it work for your child, make it work for your family. And then eventually you'll have that gradual release of responsibility for whatever you would like to accomplish.
Yes, yes. And mine would be to just remember, parents, that if you have any concerns, worries, questions, please know that doctors, educators, therapists, tutors, we want to know what you're thinking. We want to help support you. You and your child are at the center. So please, please make sure you start talking about it. And again, to your trust person, to your pediatrician, whoever you need to, because then we can help shepherd and navigate. It can be so overwhelming when you're in that place, but you don't have to do it alone. All right. All right. Well, thanks so much. And Meg, we will be in touch. And I hope you guys enjoyed this installment of this virtual roundtable. I want to just thank you all for joining us. What a powerhouse of panelists today. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you for hosting.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye,
All right,
everyone.
thanks,
Thanks for having
everybody.
us.